Hey guys, this is Shedrick from ClarksonTV.live. We're here today and we're talking about Army teachers in the state of Tennessee. We've got a great panel of professionals, experts on this subject, and so we're going to talk about it here today. So I'm the moderator here for today's discussion about Army teachers in the state of Tennessee. This discussion will focus on whether this is an appropriate response to school safety or if this is a bit too far. So we've got several panelists here. I'm going to introduce our panelists to give you their qualification and why they were chosen, selected to be panelists here, and then we'll get deep into our discussion. And again, we'll hop into that quickly so that there's some time for you guys to ask questions at the end. First, we have Dr. Regina Etter. Regina, thank you. Dr. Etter has served the students and teachers of Metro Nashville Public Schools for over 30 years. She's an advocate for teaching and for learning. Dr. Etter's passion is displayed through her innovative methods of presenting pedagogy to educators throughout the country. Working with numerous initiatives and varying roles for the school district has afforded her opportunities to provide teachers with instructional practices that are practical, rigorous, and content-rich. Dr. Etter's impact on the education arena has been extended to the NSF, the NSTA, TSTA, TSIN, SEC-ME, NABSE, Vanderbilt University, Tennessee State University, Fisk University, Trevecca University, and Middle Tennessee State University. Felt like Shannon Sharp did. Dr. Etter's latest assignment has involved federally funded STEM and STEAM initiatives affecting multiple schools, students, and communities. Dr. Regina Etter. As you can tell, the organizers of this event did not hold back in finding the perfect panelists for this discussion. Tanaya N. Anderson is an African-American queer woman from Clarksville, Tennessee. She's a student at Austin Peay State University pursuing a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in event planning. Tanaya is the president of Austin Peay College Democrats and Purpose on Purpose. She advocates for reproductive justice, environmental justice, LGBTQ plus rights, and many more important issues. Tanaya is currently an intern with Black Clarksville, where she serves as the event staff intern. She's also an intern for Healthy and Free Tennessee as an intern at Youth Leadership Council. She previously interned at the Kennedy Law Firm and served as a mentor for the Montgomery County Juvenile Court's 2010 Vision Mentorship Program. Tanaya Anderson. Welcome. Jarita Reese.
All right.
Jarita Reese has been with the Clarksville Montgomery County School System for 10 years. She's been privileged to work with students and teachers in a Title I setting. She received her BS in elementary education from Austin Peay State University. She has worked as a math and science third grade teacher. Her goal is to create academically engaging learning experiences through an environment that fosters creativity, curiosity, and kindness. She has won the Green Apple Award, the Distinguished Educator Award from the Clarksville Montgomery County Education Association. In those 10 years with CMCSS, she's worked with students that are intellectually disabled, as well as students with emotional difficulties. Jarita Reese.
All right. She don't play in school.
AC Big Sarge Lopez is a 100% combat disabled veteran. He is highly regarded for his work as a constitutionalist and social and community activist. Sarge was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas, hunting and fishing. He's dedicated almost 23 years of his life to active duty military service in the United States Marine Corps and the Army. During this time in service, Sarge completed 3 combat tours, 2 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and 1 in Operation Enduring Freedom, where he was affectionately nicknamed Big Sarge for his high energy, motivation, and attitude that was bigger than his physical stature. Sarge moved to Clarksville, Tennessee in 2014 while stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and began a decade's worth of volunteering and community service. 23 years, a decade, you guys do the math there, right? He brought his legendary energy to the Montgomery County GOP and ran for 2 political offices in 2022. Sarge's expertise comes from a lifetime of hunting, plinking, recreational shooting, and military training. He served as a primary marksman instructor in the Maritime Interdiction Operations, or ship security, with MARDET in the Marine Corps. In the Army, he served as a weapons and tactical instructor, marksmanship instructor, operations and tactics instructor, anti-terrorism training supervisor, and as a tactical information operations planner. He also spent several years working behind the gun counter meeting ATF standards while processing gun sales. He is also a certified gunsmith, advocates for the protection of Second Amendment rights at the state capitol and local organizations. He was the owner and operator of Big Sarge Custom Gun Works and Repair. AC Big Sarge Lopez. Shayna Wimberly. Shauna, thank you. And I told her to correct me. And I appreciate that. Shauna Wimberly is a teacher of 9 years. She has a bachelor's degree in history and a minor in teaching, certified to teach in 7th through 12th grade history and government. Teaching is so much more than just the subjects we teach. It's the impact we make in our students' lives each day. I'll say that again. Teaching is so much more than just the subjects we teach. It's the impact we make in our students' lives each day.
Amen.
Shauna Wimberly. Mr. Dexter Mines. Mr. Mines currently serves as a senior implementation strategist at the Center for Policing Equity. Prior to joining CPE, Mr. Mines served as a law enforcement officer for over 20 years and retired as the assistant director of the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, and as a law enforcement training instructor for the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. He is a former member of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, where he served as a SWAT team member, a school resource officer, and a drug recognition expert. Mr. Mines retired from the U.S. Army after serving more than 24 years, working in 3 different specialties: a career counselor, a personnel supervisor, and a communications specialist. Mr. Mines also worked undercover drugs while serving on a special assignment with the Criminal Investigation Command. Mr. Mines is also a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, where he serves on the International Risk Management and Grievance Team. I didn't know if there were a couple other Sigmas in here or not. Tennessee State Director. He was the Tennessee State Director for Phi Beta Sigma Beta Club and a proud member of the Lambda Alpha Sigma chapter in Clarksville, Tennessee. Dexter Mines.
I'm absolutely excited about being here. First of all, let me say thank you to the NAACP, the Center for Policing Equity, and also our very host, the Great Missionary Baptist Church, Pastor Hubbard, who is a friend of mine. But I'm excited about being here. This subject is passionate to me because I just don't think that the problem with gun control is more guns, especially in the church.
Miss Reese.
So I am Miss Reese, Miss Jarita Reese. I also agree that solving the problem with guns is not arming more people with guns. We need to focus on mental health and allowing students and people to feel comfortable with their mental health issues rather than pushing them aside or making them feel as if they are less than.
Big Sarge.
Hey, Monica said I can have 5 minutes. I'll take it all 5 minutes. Okay, right? Hey, I'm AC Big Sarge Lopez. I'm a social and community activist, but most of y'all in this room know me for my political endeavors and my opinions on controversial issues. Why we're here today is to discuss another controversial issue about Army school teachers. Is that as Cedric read my bio, you could tell that I have a very unique perspective of on gun safety and student safety. What I failed to mention in my bio is I'm also a graduate and member of the Clarksville Citizens Police Academy. And I feel that gave me a lot of insight, especially since I was going through the class during the Covenant incident. So today I brought my assistant Joshua Welcome or like Representative Ronnie Glenn likes to call him, Baby Sarge. He's a political major at APSU. He also has 11 years of military active duty service. He has about 20 years of handling firearm, and he has an enhanced carry permit holder. He is an enhanced carry permit holder in the state of Tennessee. It's this man right here is a man that I trust with my life and the life of my children and my grandchildren. But according to House Bill 1202 and Senate Bill 1325, if he was a teacher, he would not even be remotely qualified to carry a firearm on school grounds. But he would be allowed to carry one on the state capitol grounds. So I can concur that our students are probably more protected than the politicians that passed this bill. I still go more. Look, I'm not here today to change anybody's minds on their stance on the Second Amendment. That's my thing. I love the Second Amendment. It's God-given right. But I want to give you a different perspective. My goal is here to give you a different perspective on this controversial issue, because we have lessons learned. Uvalde, for example, is lessons learned from past citizens. Uvalde, the United States Supreme Court upheld the 1989 decision of Deschaney versus Winnebago County. A police officer has no duty to protect your life. That is Supreme Court law. Parkland, the Parkland incident. The Atlanta Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta in December 2020 stated that school resource officers have no duty to protect. And that really upsets me, because as the cowardly SRO, they say he hid outside the building while 17 children were getting massacred. That being said, I am not taking anything away from the fine deputies of the Montgomery County Sheriff Department. It said they do an absolutely fantastic job, and I don't need no more tickets. So also, the third instance I have is the Covenant incident, right? The Covenant incident was a unique incident that happened to us in Nashville, because the shooter was a former student and calculated and exploited the weaknesses of the school's physical barriers, security systems, and outdated training and practices. These bills that will become law on July 1st are stem from the result of the Covenant incident. Key points, so we could talk about later about these bills are, first of all, no one's forcing teachers to carry handguns. It's not a thing. It's a voluntary program. If it's approved by the sheriff, the school district, and the principal of that particular school, it's not going to cost us nothing. Once again, it's a volunteer program. The applicant is going to be responsible for the cost of the enhanced carry permit, the yearly and psychological exam. And if all the requirements and the backgrounds are completed, the armed teacher would have the exact same training as a reserve police officer. I could not think of a better group of people to protect our students than the armed teachers who love their students so much that they're willing to put their lives on the line to protect them. And at the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing. It's a safe learning environment for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Big Sarge. Mrs. Wendell.
Well, I was also told 5 minutes, and I spent a long time on this, so you're gonna have to listen to me. So, I'm Shona Wimberly. I lived in Clarksville since 2009 and have made this my home. I went to Austin Peay for my bachelor's degree in history with minors in education and geography. I am licensed to teach secondary history and government. I chose teaching because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of my students. I have taught for 9 years in CMCSS. I taught 6th grade social studies for 2 years, and I am about to finish my 7th year of 7th grade social studies. I love my students. I provide what I can for my students, including school supplies, food, hygiene products, and more. I didn't grow up with lockdown drills, and when I student taught, it wasn't really discussed. It was glossed over like it wasn't a big deal that we truly needed to worry about. And then I got into the classroom on my own and dealt with the reality of locking my room down, of getting children in the corner, making sure that they're quiet so I can listen for footsteps and gunshots. Have you ever had a child ask you what happens when a gunman comes in the room? Have you had to look at children obviously scared and promise them that you will die fighting to give them a chance to live? I've scoped out the woods near my part of the building, so I know where I can take them. I have a bag made by my husband, who is an ICU nurse, that has supplies in it in case of a shooter. My school's SRO has provided all of the classrooms with Stop the Bleed kits, and we have the training. It shouldn't be required of teachers to be expected to put our lives on the line for our students or to have medical training about bullet wounds. I shouldn't have to worry that if there is a lockdown, I won't make it home to my husband. We have seen officers all over the country refuse to engage with active shooters in schools, but the expectation of the state of Tennessee is that I and my fellow educators are not only in charge of their education, but we can now volunteer to put ourselves in further harm's way by being the one to carry a weapon on campus so we can engage with an active shooter. While the writing of the bill makes it to where it would be voluntary, if you have worked in education, you know that everything that is asked in education goes from voluntary to an expectation. As a teacher in this state, I am not trusted with many things. I am not trusted to pick the books in a classroom library. I am not trusted to have my cell phone or a smartwatch when state testing is occurring in my classroom. I am not trusted with the ability to monitor and adjust the temperature of my classroom. But now the state legislature believes that I might be able to be trusted with a gun in my classroom. In the law itself, it will require 40 hours of law enforcement training to be done each year, to have a background check and mental health evaluation to be allowed to carry in the building. There are no provisions on storage of the weapon. All of the costs, again, are on the teacher. Interesting that the law states that neither the district or the law enforcement agency that has given the teacher permission to carry can be held liable for any action or inaction by a teacher who is allowed to carry in the school building. There is no part of the law that states that the teacher won't be held liable. It does state, however, that the only person required to know if a teacher is carrying a gun in the building is the principal. If there is an SRO, they are also to know. No one likes to talk about the fact that most of these times, these intruders are former students. They expect us to now choose to carry a gun in the classroom so we can attempt to stop a shooter that we probably poured ourselves into for a year, if not more, and shoot them. Yes, this might save lives, but we will also be taking one. Then we will return to our classroom and our students will see us and know that we took someone's life. How will I look at my students and get them to continue to trust me and know that I care about them if I was able to shoot a former student? When the bill passed our legislature, I talked with my husband that when our governor signed it, because we knew that he would, I would wait to see what CMCSS would do, but if they agreed that I would leave the district and teaching altogether. I talked with other friends that are educators in our district, many of who had agreed with me that they would leave if our district allowed it. When CMCSS released the news that they would not allow teachers to carry in the classroom, I cried for a solid 10 minutes. I was so relieved. Guns don't belong in classrooms. Students can't make finger guns at each other. They can't bring Nerf, BB, airsoft, paintball, or squirt guns to school. But the legislature has allowed teachers to have the opportunity to carry a real gun, one that is meant to take lives in the same room as children, when again, they don't trust me to just teach my students. Throughout this, I've continued to think about a former teacher who left law enforcement to become a teacher. He went through 4 years of school to get his degree, taught 1 year of 7th grade, and chose to go back to law enforcement because it was easier. I am not saying that law enforcement is easy. If you have not dealt with the day-to-day working of students, 30 students in your room, 5 times a day for 180 days, you cannot understand the stress and what it truly takes to be a teacher. Yes, I chose this career. Yes, I knew it would be difficult. But I had also hoped that while working in the system, I and other educators could work to make the system better. Guns don't make anything better.
Dr. Eder?
Good afternoon. It is a privilege, Cedric Webster, a moderator for the afternoon, and the NAACP, who's hosting this wonderful event and giving us an opportunity to speak. As I have listened to so much, and I'm
Shauna Wimberly. I lived in Clarksville since 2009 and have made this my home. I went to Austin Peay for my bachelor's degree in history with minors in education and geography. I am licensed to teach secondary history and government. I chose teaching because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of my students. I've taught for 9 years in CMCSS. I taught 6th grade social studies for 2 years, and I'm about to finish my 7th year of 7th grade social studies. I love my students. I provide what I can for my students, including school supplies, food, hygiene products, and more. I didn't grow up with lockdown drills, and when I student taught, it wasn't really discussed. It was glossed over like it wasn't a big deal that we truly needed to worry about. And then I got into the classroom on my own and dealt with the reality of locking my room down, of getting children in the corner, making sure that they're quiet so I can listen for footsteps and gunshots. Have you ever had a child ask you what happens when a gunman comes in the room? Have you had to look at children obviously scared and promise them that you will die fighting to give them a chance to live? I've scoped out the woods near my part of the building, so I know where I can take them. I have a bag made by my husband, who is an ICU nurse, that has supplies in it in case of a shooter. My school's SRO has provided all of the classrooms with Stop the Bleed kits, and we have the training. It shouldn't be required of teachers to be expected to put our lives on the line for our students or to have medical training about bullet wounds. I shouldn't have to worry that if there is a lockdown, I won't make it home to my husband. We have seen officers all over the country refuse to engage with active shooters in schools, but the expectation of the state of Tennessee is that I and my fellow educators are not only in charge of their education, but we can now volunteer to put ourselves in further harm's way by being the one to carry a weapon on campus so we can engage with an active shooter. While the writing of the bill makes it to where it would be voluntary, if you have worked in education, you know that everything that is asked in education goes from voluntary to an expectation. As a teacher in this state, I am not trusted with many things. I am not trusted to pick the books in a classroom library. I am not trusted to have my cell phone or a smartwatch when state testing is occurring in my classroom. I am not trusted with the ability to monitor and adjust the temperature of my classroom. But now the state legislature believes that I might be able to be trusted with a gun in my classroom. In the law itself, it will require 40 hours of law enforcement training to be done each year, to have a background check and mental health evaluation to be allowed to carry in the building. There are no provisions on storage of the weapon. All of the costs, again, are on the teacher. Interesting that the law states that neither the district or the law enforcement agency that has given the teacher permission to carry can be held liable for any action or inaction by a teacher who is allowed to carry in the school building. There is no part of the law that states that the teacher won't be held liable. It does state, however, that the only person required to know if a teacher is carrying a gun in the building is the principal. If there is an SRO, they are also to know. No one likes to talk about the fact that most of these times, these intruders are former students. They expect us to now choose to carry a gun in the classroom so we can attempt to stop a shooter that we probably poured ourselves into for a year, if not more, and shoot them. Yes, this might save lives, but we will also be taking one. Then we will return to our classroom and our students will see us and know that we took someone's life. How will I look at my students and get them to continue to trust me and know that I care about them if I was able to shoot a former student? When the bill passed our legislature, I talked with my husband that when our governor signed it, because we knew that he would, I would wait to see what CMCSS would do, but if they agreed that I would leave the district and teaching altogether. I talked with other friends that are educators in our district, many of whom agreed with me that they would leave if our district allowed it. When CMCSS released the news that they would not allow teachers to carry in the classroom, I cried for a solid 10 minutes. I was so relieved. Guns don't belong in classrooms. Students can't make finger guns at each other. They can't bring Nerf, BB, airsoft, paintball, or squirt guns to school. But the legislature has allowed teachers to have the opportunity to carry a real gun, one that is meant to take lives in the same room as children, when again, they don't trust me to just teach my students. Throughout this, I've continued to think about a former teacher who left law enforcement to become a teacher. He went through 4 years of school to get his degree, taught 1 year of 7th grade, and chose to go back to law enforcement because it was easier. I am not saying that law enforcement is easy. If you have not dealt with the day-to-day working of students, 30 students in your room, 5 times a day, for 180 days, you cannot understand the stress and what it truly takes to be a teacher. Yes, I chose this career. Yes, I knew it would be difficult. But I had also hoped that while working in the system, I and other educators could work to make the system better. Guns don't make anything better.
Dr. Etter?
Good afternoon. It is a privilege, Cedric Webster, a moderator for the afternoon, and the NAAC, who's hosting this wonderful event and giving us an opportunity to speak. As I have listened to so much, and I'm sitting here thinking about my right to teach. My right to teach. I'm called to this because I've been an educator for almost 40 years with the Metro National Public School System. And I've traveled across the country working with teachers and educating them. But it's not just my right to teach, but giving children a safe environment to which they can learn. I understand what you're saying, my brother. I understand what you're saying, my sister. And I think we're all here because today we are as a part of this panel to share insight and understanding to help us to make some decisions about the children that come to school to feel safe. Their parents send them so they can feel safe and they can learn. So as a teacher, my right is to educate these babies and give them a chance, because if we don't, they can't.
Hi everyone. So a little about me that wasn't in my bio. I'm the oldest of 5 to a single mom, and I grew up in public schools all my life. All of my siblings grew up in public schools, and I still have 2 who are one in high school, one in middle school here in Clarksville, Montgomery County. And that's why this issue is passionate to me, because I grew up in what they call the lockdown generation. So I very clearly remember having to stack desks up against the doors, everybody get in the corner, be quiet. We had to do this just about every year that I can remember. I have no idea how our elected officials thought the solution to guns in schools was to bring more guns into schools, but that's where we are now, so that's what we have to deal with.
I would love to start this question with Miss Wimberly. Yeah.
You good on this?
I'm good.
You're good. You guys are, I believe this panel is well equipped to deal with these questions. I'm impressed with each of you, not just your bios, but your introductions impressed me further. So you're well equipped to handle this. The first question, what impact might this have on the recruitment of teachers in Clarksville, Montgomery County?
This is a great question, and this was one that I thought about a lot and have struggled with, because so I teach at Montgomery Central Middle, and we are one of the only buildings in the district that is fully staffed. And so I think that it's going to be a struggle to retain teachers as it is, even without this bill. And I have watched people, like I said, I knew one gentleman who literally did a year and was like, I can't. I think things like this, putting more on our plate, they're not taking anything off our plates, they're not making them any bigger. And they're certainly not paying us anymore. And I think that the retention and recruitment for that makes it so much more difficult, because again, we signed up to be teachers, not law enforcement officers. I can't do that job. And I don't want to do that job. I didn't sign up for that. So I think it makes it incredibly more difficult.
Ms. Reese?
So I teach at Kenwood Elementary, which is known in the community as Kenwood. But that is not how we feel about our school.
There are community members that don't feel that about your school.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so I have worked there, like I said, for 10 years. I have seen kids go from kindergarten to middle school to high school. My first year of students that I had at Kenwood are currently graduating this year. I might get a little emotional because this is very dear to me. I could never, ever imagine having to pull a gun on a student that I formerly had. I have lots of students that are in my elementary class that have siblings. I could never look at those siblings or those parents ever again with a clear conscience if I had to pull a gun. Not even shoot a gun, but just pull a gun out on a student that I formerly had. And as Ms. L, she's been a substitute at our school for several months. She's done a fantastic job. But as she could attest, I deal with more than just the kids in my classroom. I deal with more than just the kids on my hallway. I deal with many children in our entire building. I have little kindergartners that come up to me and I can't wait to be in your class because my sibling says that you're so fun. So I personally can never imagine pulling a gun or having a gun in the building at all. So to have the ability to do that is not anything that I would ever want to be a part of. The recruitment will probably diminish. We are at a very tough time in recruiting teachers altogether. There are several colleges that have diminished their education program altogether because there are people not enrolling to be teachers anymore because it is a thankless, tough job that things are added onto our plate every single day. I am required to make relationships with my students, which I do anyway. That is just part of my job. But it is required. There's training to help you build relationships with students. So I have become a school counselor. I have to take money for things like field trips, lunch money. I am now an accountant. There are many other jobs that I have to do as a teacher because money is brought to me. I can't just send them to the office. I have to collect money, keep a log of that money, keep receipts of all of the money that is given to me because I might steal $1. You know, but I'm the librarian. I have to make sure all my kids turn in their books for the library. I am the secretary from the office to the parents. I have to make sure all of these letters about attendance, school fees, lunch cafeteria, all of that gets home. Awards. And if those things are not turned in, who does it come back on? It comes back on me. Well, the teacher never gave me that. But when you're adding something as far as like, I have to take 40 hours of gun training and then a psychological test and all of these other things, you want to add more to my plate, but you don't want to pay me more. I'm not valued by people and not everyone in the community, but I'm not valued as a professional. And that is demeaning. So when you're adding something else to the plate where we have to be in charge of guns, I can barely keep up with a pen some days. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I can barely keep up with a pen because I have 20 kids asking me questions. I have 20 kids that need me for something. I have 20 kids who want to tell me about what they did overnight or what happened over the weekend or things that are significant in their lives. How am I expected to keep up with a gun when there's no provisions on where to put the gun? Am I supposed to carry it with me at all times? Am I only supposed to carry it with me when I leave my classroom? Then I have to take the 5 minutes to lock it up because I want to be responsible if I'm required to do that. But those are all of the things that are being added to our plate. I have teachers that don't know where their badge is 20% of the time. And we're required to wear that all the time. Oh, I also have to be security because I also have to check people that walk in our building that don't have badges. And if you don't stop and ask them, where's your badge, where's your name tag, I have to then escort them to the office. I have to find someone else to watch my children if my children are with me and walk them to the office. That also puts me in danger. So because am I going to pull out a gun on that person who's doing their job? Because we have secret shoppers that come and verify that you're doing that. But if there's someone in the building who does not have a badge or a name tag, am I then responsible if I let that person get past me? So it would not be very good to have something else added to the plate of teachers to then be police officers, which is not what I signed up to do.
Dr. Eric, I'm going to allow you to tackle this question, but I would like to say before you do, I know you work with school districts all over the country. I know you're housed at Metro National right now. Miss Wimberly and Miss Reese are not available for transfer to Metro National
I am.
or any other district unless you're going to pay them double. And Josh, let's make sure that we can keep Miss Wimberly and Miss Reese here in Montgomery County.
I'm not making that commute.
We're working on it.
So
I'm sure you're wonderful.
5% is not enough to work on. 5% won't keep them from going to other districts. So just a note. But Dr. Eder, would you like me to repeat the question? I know it's been a little bit. Okay.
Teacher retention is all over the nation. And I will say that there's a state out west where a person can come in with a high school diploma driver's license and be placed in a classroom. So when you were talking about how now our roles are, we're not looked at as professionals like other professions, we've been diminished to a person with a high school diploma and a driver's license. Now they go through some rigorous training, but I was appalled sitting in the meeting. But let me tell you, let me correct you, make sure everybody knows it clear. I live in Clarksville. I live in Clarksville, and I've been here for, that's right. I've been here for 3 years, and it's been delightful. And the community, I've been a part of the community doing some things that will help all of our children, because that's the work that I do, and I am funded through the federal government. So they send me out to do the work. They didn't send me to Clarksville. I came here on my own, but I love it. And being a part of this today, I'm listening as you were talking so passionately about why we need to retain teachers and the fact that our teachers don't have everything that they need. But yet and still we have one more thing, and the plate gets so full and so heavy. But I started thinking about, as a parent and as a grandparent of 2 little children coming into the public school system, how do I feel knowing that my little Nuri, and my Josiah has a teacher who has a weapon? How do I feel when I realize that teacher has stressors just like everybody else and may tip over at the least little thing? How do I feel as a grandparent knowing that my babies are there and I'm not sure you locked it up safely? So the right to carry, I go back to how I started. They have a right to teach, and they have a right to be in an environment where that's safe. We did a poll with our teachers. It's a game with our parents. It's a game we play, and they get $1 in change. And there's a board of different things they believe that the school should offer. We, as a public school, as a LEA, as a learning agency, they should. So the top 3 things were a good principal, good principal. But number 2 was safety, a safe environment. So here I come to school and my child's teacher is right to carry, but they had a problem at home. They were upset about something. They have a right to carry.
That part.
But my child has a right to learn in that safe environment. So with teacher retention, no. I can see teachers not wanting to come, people not wanting to go into education. TSU last fall I think there were 11 people signed up in the education department. I came through that education department. I know how good it is. I know what it can do for you as an educator and how the skills and how we were taught. So I see the value of what they had then, and now we've reduced to 11 people that want to be educators. But we have the right to carry. But do I have the right to teach?
Thank you. If you don't know, Dr. Eder is also a minister. And I will let you know, Dr. Eder, feel free if you want to stand up, because I've seen you try to a couple times. Feel free to stand up. You get to go for that. So, if you want to see her preach. And the first Sunday of July? Okay. First Sunday of June. So at least once a month, Pastor Harris had to get out of her way and let a great pulpit the first Sunday in June. So, or you can watch it online on the First Missionary Baptist Church Facebook page.
Good plug.
If there's a problem with the sound, that's on me. So I'm serious. I mixed the sound for the live stream, so if there's problems with the sound, that's on me. See? Took responsibility. I do want to switch questions to something that's a little bit more appropriate for those that are not educators up here. Tonight, I want you to tackle this one first. In your opinion, what are some alternative measures that can be taken to increase school safety without arming teachers?
In my opinion, the most obvious alternative measure would be what everyone was asking for, what the teachers were asking for: common sense gun laws, background checks, storage requirement laws, anything except this. Basic upgrades to school security, plans set in place for threat assessment programs.
Correct. Can you go back and say the first thing you said again? Because you faded out just a little bit when you said that.
Common sense gun laws.
Common sense gun laws, and then you described several. So great. Sarge, as a weapons professional, longtime weapons professional, what do you feel like would be a safer alternative, or a safe alternative to school safety?
The same thing that I was preaching since the Covenant incident. We need to have the bullet-resistant film in every glass in every school building in Montgomery County. I know it's going to cost a lot, but it's that one of the physical barriers of the Covenant shooting was that they were able to shoot through. The shooter was able to shoot through the glass and to get to the main hallway. If they, for relatively speaking, for the price, the most effective, most deterrent would be a ballistic film that will stop the glass from shattering and breaking and give the educator and hopefully an armed teacher a few more seconds and minutes to deal with the situation.
Gotcha. And Mr. Mines, same question.
Well, let me first say the first answer to that is giving them more money, teachers more money is not the answer. I think they can use the money. If you know anything about teaching, I'm not a teacher, but being a school resource officer, I've seen teachers use their own money to take care of students, not only to educate them, but to clothe them, but to feed them. To some kids, I've seen them take them to the barbershop, do many things outside the norm of what we call teaching, not just for the purpose of anything else, but they care. Okay? We as a community, first of all, have to start caring. We want our young people educated. We have to start caring. What I mean by that is because we believe that there's no reason to vote. There's no reason to care about that because they're going to make the same decision. Well, I've learned that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results.
Right.
So we have to learn to change. One of the things that Dr. Tracy Kazee, who is the COO of the Center for Policing Equity, she said this: the system is not broken. As a matter of fact, the system is working the way it's designed to work. In 2024, our responsibility is to break that system because obviously that system is not doing what it should be doing for where we are now. Sarge's point is, let's get bulletproof that or glass and stuff. And stuff. We can do all of those things. It's a film, not glass. Thank you. We can do all of those things, okay? But we're still going to have incidents, whether it happens inside the school or outside of the school. Because when you look at that law, right, at face value, they're saying you can carry the gun, but you can't carry it in the cafeteria. You can't carry it in the gym events. You can't carry it at a football event. But what you're trying to say is you can carry it. We don't know when that's going to happen, right? And then you start talking common sense. We have to make sure, prime example, I've been Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. I honor that department. I work there. So I don't have any ought with that department. Didn't leave that there on good terms. However, when the governor put money into getting SROs for our school systems, right? A lot of the school systems jumped on it, right? And they began to hire SROs. As a matter of fact, they hired SROs at a higher rate of what the patrol officer was making.
Wow.
So everybody that came into Montgomery County looking for a job as a deputy sheriff, why not go to the school?
Right.
You get the summer off. Can I see your mic? I want to make sure I'm heard.
Thank you so much.
You get the summer off. Okay, you get all the things that teachers get doing the thing. You get to hang out with your family. You don't have to get out here on patrol and work every day. Plus, you get more money, right? And these were everybody. And the only thing you had to do was be certified by the state of Tennessee as a peace officer. Okay, we didn't go do backgrounds on them because everybody can't be in a school. Because SROs have a responsibility, and that's to be a resource for security of that school, to know the exits, to know the camera locations, to know where they're hidden spots, to know where students do whatever they do. It's our responsibility, and to advise that principal who is overall in charge of the safety of that school. But we have to work in tandem. We have to work together. And when we have leaders who don't work together,
right? Because they know we don't do our part as a community, and that's vote and get involved, then they're going to do whatever they want to do. That responsibility for Montgomery County was held by two people to say no, that we're not going to have or arm our teachers. And that was the superintendent of schools, and that was the sheriff. But everybody say, thank you, that's a great job. But the law is still on the books of the state of Tennessee. The supervisor of schools one day will leave. The sheriff will one day decide not to run and somebody else will come in. These folks have different ideas. And they can take that same law and arm our teachers here in the state of Tennessee. And we have to know the importance of that. We have to understand what that means. It may not happen now, but could it happen? And if it could, it's too late. Okay? That's the common sense that we have. And it's about voting. It's about getting involved in community. Okay? It's about the job that I do now is going around the country. I'm dealing with an agency who has gangs within their agency, developed by law enforcement. This is the world we live in. But because we don't get involved as a community, we want more, but we don't want to do more. Okay, and we have to learn to do more and get involved in what's happening in our community.
Whether our teachers are armed or not. Yes, go ahead.
Our elected votes for schools did not have a vote.
They don't have a vote.
Let me be very clear. I'm not trying. I do not want. I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me say this. When I talk voting, I'm not talking party lines. I don't care. I want to be clear.
I'm not either.
Because guns don't care about party lines. And I understand what you're explaining. But when I say voting, that means just get involved in what's happening in your community. And you affect change by that. That's your recourse. It's like having a business. If I start a business and I hire people, and these people are not doing their job and I let them remain there, I made that decision for that to happen, for my business to fail. When it becomes our position, when we hire somebody by our voting, all right, and they're not doing the job, we have a choice to either retain them or terminate them. And we believe that our one vote don't count, but it does.
So our citizens can't vote for the director of schools.
No.
The school board hires the director of
Good point.
schools.
Yes.
And so if you elect the school board members who support your position, they will hire a school board director who will support your position. Okay. Educators, would you guys like to tackle that question? Are there alternative measures that can be taken to increase school safety without arming teachers? Would you like to tackle that question from the
If
standpoint
it's
of
okay,
the
I'd like to. So one of the things, and that Miss Reese, right? Okay, I'm really bad with names. Talked about too is the mental health, and it's not just the mental health of our students; it's also the mental health of our teachers, because.
Say it again.
Because one of the things that is a really big deal is the fact that Ms. Reese also brought up the fact that we are expected to be counselors, except for only sometimes. Only if the principal says it's okay, only if the counselors don't think that you're overstepping the lines. And I say this from a place when we lost a student one year, and I had counselors that were in our school building, and I had taught those kids for 2 years, and I was in the library with those crying children. I was trying not to cry. And I was told I was making it worse by being in there and comforting those children. And all I wanted to do was be there for my kids. Those are my babies. I don't have children of my own. I pull in my kids. I do everything that we can. Almost every teacher I know does. And the thing is that if we do not address the mental health of the people who work in education, of the children who work in education, instead of just telling them, well, you can go talk to this counselor. Well, if they've never talked to that counselor, how many of you guys are going to open up to a person you don't know, who's sitting behind a desk, who you've never talked to, who you don't feel safe with, who has never built that relationship that as teachers, we do. Yes, it's a requirement, but I didn't learn from the teachers I didn't like either. Trust me, I talk about them all the time still, and I'm 37 years old, and I remember several of them. And I could have been dying, literally, and I wouldn't have told them. But then we send our kids to these people that they don't know, and we're like, hey, they're going to help you with your mental health, except for most of the time, I will say, unfortunately, I have heard many stories about kids telling me, well, you should just talk to your parents about that. And if the kids were willing to talk to their parents, they wouldn't have talked to me, or they wouldn't have talked to the counselor. And the counselor's hands are also tied. I'm not allowed to affirm in any way these children. I can't say anything. I'm not supposed to do anything. And I put my job on the line when I'm there to comfort my children and not send them directly to the school counselor. And people will tell you all the time, oh, we're focusing on mental health. Yeah, we get a 1-hour class about it, and then we're told not to do anything with it. Be that person, make that relationship, but don't get too close. Don't do too much. And so if we don't fix those pieces, it doesn't matter what film we put on, what officers we put in the building, what training that they get, because we're still losing those children and we're still losing those adults. Because the other thing is that it was also brought up is that we're humans and we have stressors. And the thing is that I know many teachers who have been assaulted by students. And it's unfortunate and it sucks, and sometimes we roll with it because we know that they're having big emotions and we're trying to deal with it, and other times we're at the end of our rope. And if we're armed, how long? I give it days until someone is hurt. And so the safety measures have to start with community. It's not enough to just be like, well, we're going to do this. If we do not change the things in our communities, we're going to lose all of them, and we won't be able to save any of them.
So I want to direct.
I'll just tell a really quick story. Again, I teach third grade next year. I'll be going to fourth, so I'll have these same students next year again.
next year.
As of right now, the summer has not come yet. I do have a trip planned to Germany. I might lose my passport.
Can you guys make sure that Dr. and Ms. Reese don't exchange information with everyone?
Let me just say, my child has graduated, so I'm willing to commute. But
Now,
but I will
I'll
say,
just negotiate to pay for it. Make sure we get double.
it's a free deal.
Wow.
Get a cut.
They pay more. But I will say that this year I had, and like I said, I get, I'll say 80% of behavior kids in my class, dropped off from another teacher. Not like that I personally, like I do have, every year I get a break if I don't have inclusion kids, and those are kids with IEPs. I'm told you're going to get a break, but then I always get 1 or 2 kids that really push my buttons because they. He's not a problem. I like him. I understand him, so we work well together. But I have a student who has a brother in 2nd grade. The student that I have is in 3rd grade. Their mother has another child who's younger, and she's about to have another baby. Mind you, I've had this student all year. He has not done 1 lick of work for me. He is dismissed early every day. He is brought late to school every single day. We get dismissed around 2:30 is when we start our dismissal process. He's out of my classroom by 1:30 almost every day. He's missing my entire math lesson. And I say this because he was angry every day because he feels that his mother doesn't love him. He is not catching on to the material that I'm teaching because he's leaving early, coming late. And this is every single day. Probably about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and mind you, I've had him all school year. 3 weeks ago, I asked him, I was like, why are you so angry at me? I haven't done anything to you. I love you. I'm here for you. I want you to do better. I'm here to support you every single day. Why are you angry at me? And he said to me, my mom doesn't love me. And I said, that's not true. Your mom does love you. Obviously she loves you. You're her baby. He's like, no, she told me she does not love me. Mind you, this is an 8-9-year-old who is dealing with this and he's the oldest of the 4 siblings that he's about to have. And he's angry. And his brother in 2nd grade has anger issues. And these kids are coming from parents who don't know how to show affection to their kids. I'm not going to say that his mother doesn't love him because I don't know her like that. We haven't had those conversations, but I know that she does. She has to love him because that's how I feel parents should feel about their kids. But when I told him, I do love you very much, and I named several teachers and people that worked in our building that do care about him and love him, the change in his attitude was monumental. Every day he would come and say, he'd walk over, and he's not an affectionate kid. He didn't start out the school year as an affectionate kid, but every day he comes over to me now and he gives me a hug. When he walks through my door, he smiles at me. But he knows that next year he probably won't be at our school because he's already said my mom's going to send me to my dad's, and he's coming to Nashville. But that's to say, our kids at 8, 9, 7, 8, and younger have mental issues and are dealing with a lot of emotional things at home. That's why I say mental health for our educators, because we do have a lot on our plate and we're having to deal with discipline problems in our classrooms. We don't get support from our admin because our hands are tied. As far as like what we're allowed to do as far as discipline, because I am part of the CMCA Education Association here in Montgomery County, and I collaborate with the directors at CMCSS. And we talk about a discipline policy and how it needs to change for elementary because those kids are not immune to being disciplined. But we coddle them. And they go on and their behavior gets worse and worse and worse and worse. But we're told elementary students, they can't handle discipline. But when we put them in middle school, they're thrown to the wolves. They are suspended. They're put in ISS. And not to say that, what I mean by all of this is we're giving our kids, our students in elementary, a pass on their discipline and their behavior. And then when they get to middle school, they are thrown to the wolves. They are disciplined in ways that they're not used to. But we're, again, not addressing their mental issues. And some kids don't have mental issues, they're just BAD. And I'm just saying. And I mean that wholeheartedly because they're BAD with their parents. But some kids do have other things going on in their household and in their lives that we don't know about, and we have no way of helping them. So mental health for students is going to be one of the best ways that we can combat what we're dealing with in our schools.
What are some of the potential risks of having firearms in schools, even if they're in the possession of trained teachers? What are some of the potential risks? Big Sergeant, you can start with.
So, first of all, if you read the bill, I was getting a lot of trash on social media because my number one answer to everyone's concern was read the bill. In the bill it states that, I'm sorry, but if you're an armed teacher, you can't have it in a safe. You can't have it it has to be on you the whole time. It's if you're an experienced concealed carry carrier, it doesn't bother you. It's comfortable. It's a feel that it's there anymore. But once again, to answer that question is that it is going to be on the armed teacher at the whole time. Now, what the concern could be, and I feel the concern of most people in this room, just like Representative Ronnie Glenn said, maybe there's a student that's 6'4", 250 pounds, pure muscle linebacker at West Creek Elementary. Yeah, right. It's at high. At high, and the armed teacher may be a little bit shorter statue, kind of like a baby sergeant over there. That might be a concern, but then again, with the 40 hours of training, with the training of the enhanced concealed carry, it teaches you how to deal with those situations. Look, I get it. y'all don't want to be armed. Y'all don't say y'all don't like guns. I understand. But if it comes to a life and death situation, or if you love your children, if you love your student so much that you're willing to put your life on the line to protect them, you gotta know what to do with it. But once again, for the security of the handgun, because it cannot be a firearm, it has to be a handgun, it has to be on the person the entire time. Thank you.
And so, just to kind of clarify, you're saying you understand that there's potential risk, but you think those risks are mitigated by the training and the fact that the teacher has to remain on the firearm has to remain on the teacher at all times.
Yes, even in the bathroom break, even to everything like that, it has to be on it according to the bill. It's on both bills. That is the requirement.
Okay. Mr. Mines.
One of the risks is a teacher getting shot by law enforcement. Okay, how do you identify who that is? You said the SRO is the person, one of the people who know. When that panic happens, sometimes that information don't get disseminated. Okay, and our responsibility when we arrive on scene is to go toward the threat. We have to go over people who've been injured. We're focused. And can you imagine a teacher coming out of a room and an officer sees a gun? That teacher has the potential to be shot. Okay, because it's not. You talk about 40 hours of training. 40 hours of training don't even touch the surface of what's really needed.
There's more training than the 40 hours.
What's another risk? Is a student shooting a student or a teacher shooting a student. Let me start there. It's already been mentioned. I think probably maybe a couple of months ago, the Clarksville Police Department responded to a domestic, and what they found was a 14-year-old young man in the
Mr. Sarge, can you hand the mic to Thank you. And here's again, I would like for you to not speak when other people are speaking. Give them the same courtesy they've given you. Sarge, if you can please give them the same courtesy that they've given you. This is not the House Oversight Committee. They can over talk to each other there, but here we're going to be respectful and civil. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
So when you that potential there, when you talk about these kids, very smart. Yeah, you can say, well, we're gonna lock them up here, we're gonna lock them up there, whatever the case may be. There have been incidents where there has been guns in school brought by teachers, and they left them in the bathroom, and who found them? What's a kid? Okay, and we know disproportionately who's shooting each other: African American kids. Okay, so the potential is for another kid to shoot a kid. Okay, so there's always the potential for this to go awry because we are putting more and more things, as Mrs. Reese said, on that teacher, responsibilities on that teacher. You know, and we have to think about. I do agree with Sarge. Training helps, but it's not the overall answer in that sense, because as law enforcement, we train all the time. We're required to do 40 hours of in-service training a year. 40 hours out of 365 days is not a lot of training. 8 of those hours are through, they're required to have firearms training. Okay, 8 hours, that's a minimum. Some agencies do more, and some agencies do the bare minimum. Okay, so you never know what you're going to get when you enter that building from a law enforcement officer. And then it also takes people.
Sarge, you can attack this question as well. How would the school? Because you studied this quite often.
Yes, but to clarify, and I hate to do this to you, to retort, to retort something. There was some misinformation that was being said out here, maybe because the law was not thoroughly.
Can you address the question first, and then I'll allow you time to address whatever misinformation. Okay. So let me ask the question. Address the question first. How would the school district ensure that firearms on campuses are stored securely to prevent accidents?
Once again, it cannot be. it has to be on the person. It's the law. Well, it's not the law yet. It's going to be the law on July 1st. But it has to be on the person. Once again, if you're on the bathroom break, if you go, anything like that, it has to be on the armed teacher.
And so, do you feel like that's the safest place for the?
I do. And back to the training, right? Is the person, the teacher that, or first of all, so let's get this clear. It's just not the teacher that can carry. It could be a janitor. It's even school personnel. It could be a janitor. It could be a school bus driver. No, school bus drivers I don't agree with, but it's a teacher, school bus driver, principal, vice principal. It's anyone that's a school personnel. Once again, it's in the bill, right? It's that's House Bill 1202. If you're looking for that information, so once again, it is not the responsibility of the school district to secure that firearm. It is the responsibility of that armed person that decided to pay the $700 for the psych exam a year, to do the 40 hours training a year, to do the 40 plus hours to get the enhanced carry license. So you're spending at least 100 hours a year training, and that's where the misinformation came from. Well, the law only says 40 years or 40 hours. Is what a lot of people are misunderstanding, that it takes hours of training to get to those 40 hours. And so it's in order, first of all, let's get this clear. The person has to want and have to feel the need to carry because of the protection. And I believe that's going to help retention standards anyways, because one of the top 5 things that Montgomery County school system is the dissatisfaction of the teachers was because they did not feel safe. Once again, it's a training. Training will teach you, hey, somebody is within. It's my personal safety thing. I say 3 feet. Some people say a little bit tighter, a little bit longer, depending on the person, right? It's to me, at 3 feet, I am comfortable enough to know where my weapon's at, how to engage my weapon, and how to secure the threat. That is training. That is personal training. And then on top of that, sorry, so I get a little excited here. And I'm talking about guns, of course I'm gonna be excited. So that's training. And so then on top of that, what a lot of the audience and a lot of people on the panel are not understanding, this is a lifestyle choice. This is like playing basketball, right? Think about it. You practice hundreds of hours to throw a free throw shot, right? It's hundreds of hours to do a 3-point, to make a 3-pointer. I spent thousands, probably years of my life training with a handgun. Just training with a handgun. So if any scenario would happen, it's that I am protected. I am protecting myself, I'm protecting my life. That is the same mindset that a teacher or a school personnel that wants to protect their students has. So when everyone said, oh, 40 hours is not enough, I don't want to carry a gun. First of all, it's a volunteer program, right? No one is forcing, I said that in my opening statement, no one is forcing teachers to carry a handgun, and it has to be a handgun.
And so you're saying part of the safety measure is that one is voluntary, and 2, if a teacher volunteers for that, they'll have more than just the 40 hours required training. They'll do an enhanced training. And so you're saying that equates to about 100 hours a week?
A year. And it has to be repeated every year.
Understood.
With the psychological evaluation has to be done every year.
So in your opinion, some of the safeguards is the training, the psychological evaluation, the enhanced training, and the fact that it's voluntary. It's going to be
and that a person that's doing this, that wants to carry, is probably pretty passionate and very extra safe with their handguns.
I understand your opinion.
Thank you.
How would the school district ensure that firearms on campus are stored securely to prevent accidents?
My answer, not let it happen,
Okay.
first of all.
I'm glad you gave such a quick answer to give teachers an opportunity to speak.
I'll give them a great answer, but I don't think that there's a way.
Okay.
I really don't think that there's a safe and secure way. I do agree with Sarge, training matters.
Yeah.
Okay, I do agree with that. But who's gonna pay for that training?
So I also agree that there's no way to do it. There is not a single teacher in my building who has a lockable cabinet or a lockable drawer. They have locks on them. They haven't worked in, I don't know, decades. No one really knows. It's funny, my kids randomly will notice that the tiles look different and they're like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know, you're in a public school. I'm just happy that there's tiles on the floor. But as Sarge was talking, I thought about an incident that happened to me last year, and anyone who has worked in education will understand this. Although we're told we don't have to get in between kids fighting, most of us can't help it because we do want to ensure the safety of our children. So I don't want them to hurt themselves. I don't want them to hurt others. I do remember specifically, so I teach in a middle school, and we have 8th graders who are 6'4", 400 pounds. And we had 2 boys last year who were, one of them was about my height, I'm about 5'8", and the other one was well over 6 feet tall, and they're about to fight. I will give you a moment of levity. I am dressed like an elf in this moment, okay? It is before Christmas, and I'm about to break up these 2 boys fighting. But I will tell you, my training tells me, and this is just from personal experience, not what they taught me, is that I know that the bigger boy is gonna hit harder, which means I put my back to him because I know that I take a hit better to the back of the head than I do to my face. Now, these boys are raging. Probably one of the only things that just calms them down is me and my jingling bells on my elf costume, okay? Because all of the kids still talk about it. But as Sarge was talking, I think about the fact that I'm supposed to be carrying that concealed carry weapon on myself with my back to a student, which means, but honestly, I'm trying to make sure that I don't touch those students because I am not allowed to touch them. I am trying to break up the fight because I'm trying to make sure that they don't injure themselves or anyone else or a bystander. And now they are in reach of my gun. And I understand that it is a personal choice. I understand that I'm not even anti-gun. I am anti-guns in a school building when I am supposed to be the safe person for these children. And I think about those instances that we as teachers get involved in all the time, whether it's the behavior kids that we know have a behavior problem or we don't know. They just got a lot of anger because middle schoolers, high schoolers, and sometimes elementary school kids, they just have a lot of anger because they cannot control what is going on in their lives. And if I was within the reach of those students, I have a feeling that one of them would have grabbed for that gun, and me and another student probably would have been injured or killed, and that scares me.
Dr. Eder, can we get a sermonette on this subject?
No.
A sermonette.
Voice and choice. Voice, simply voice and choice. And it's a personal choice. But we have to use our voice in ways that show what our choice is. And so voice and choice will stand in this moment, in this time, and in this decision. Because what happens when teachers exercise the right for voice and choice and they say no way?
And Ms. Reese, you can stick.
Let's give our panelists let me put a disclaimer out there. Big Sarge is my battle buddy, y'all. And he knew the deck was going to be stacked against him, but he still showed up. So give a round of applause to Big Sarge. He was the only one, people were getting mad and bold in the Facebook comments. But he was the only, I asked some other ones, I won't out them, but he showed up. And here he is. So thank you, Big Sarge. So we do want to offer the audience an opportunity to, if you have questions, be respectful. We know this room is leaning left. Let's just call thing a thing right now, okay? So be respectful of your questions. So who has the first question?
Thank you so much. So my name is Allie Phillips. I am the candidate for Tennessee House of Representatives in District 75. But I wanted to ask this question as a mother who has a 6-year-old about to be 7 in our first grade schools here. And this question will be directed towards you, Big Sarge, since you are the opposition here. And again, thank you for being here and giving your point of view. As with all of us, pretty much, we all want our kids safe, right? I do want to point out a couple things. First off, 40 hours a year of required training, that's a work week, right? We have jobs as simple as like clerical administration jobs that require 60 to 90 days of training. And if you don't meet their criteria after those 60 to 90 days, you're gone. So 40 hours is nothing, especially with a deadly weapon. When we talk about the law of it needing to be attached to your body, there's a lot of laws that we have. Speeding is illegal, right? People still do it. I'm guilty of it. And so you're asking teachers to remember that it's on their body, to remember that if they do take it off, to take off a romper like I'm wearing, I have to take this whole thing off to go to the restroom, I might set that firearm down and possibly forget that I left it there. There are cases in other states that do have this law implemented, that students have found the firearms in left purses, on left counters, in bathrooms, and that's a problem. Students should not be having access to the firearms. Along with the law, you're not allowed to carry it into like the gym. You're not allowed to carry it to football games. That's where the masses of people are. And by putting this out there to the public, saying like, yes, we're not sitting ducks in the school hallways anymore, but the mass of us are sitting ducks at the football game where you have a selection of people to murder if you so feel. How is that going to make anybody safe, knowing that nobody's allowed to have a gun on that type of instance? As a candidate, I support the Second Amendment. I support your right to protect yourself, your self-defense, but your right to protect yourself does not trump someone else's right to live or their safety. My almost second grader comes home crying from these active shooter drills. I never had to go through. I'm 29. I grew up with tornado drills and fire drills, and that was the occasional bomb threat in Ashland City. That was about it. So my question to you, you stated that in order to make our schools safer, or however the question was phrased, was to put films on the windows, on the doors.
Ballistic film, yes.
Yes. Why is it that the opposition's answer to gun violence is everything else? Films, bulletproof vests, bulletproof backpacks, bulletproof windows and doors, hiring more SROs, putting guns on teachers' hips. Why is that the answer and not facing the direct problem itself, which is the firearm and the people who have the mental illnesses that are carrying it? Why is that your answer? Why is it to just fabricate everything else? Because the problem still exists. If guns made people safe, we would be the safest country in the world. And we are not. Bullets are the #1 killer of children in this country. And that is a
incorrect.
fact. That is a fact.
That is incorrect. It's the number one killer of young people.
Right, that would be children.
That would be
Under 18.
that would be over 18 also.
Let's keep it respectful. And I know we have a lot of candidates running and y'all
Yeah.
would say, vote for me.
But if I could answer the question.
Questions only and not
Yeah.
statements. I would greatly appreciate that.
Well,
Thank you so much.
It wasn't about a vote for. My question was, why do you think finding all these different avenues to protect people instead of facing the problem itself, which is, for my opinion, the guns?
I believe that the guns are not the issue. What's the issue is the mental health. It's problems that these shooters are going through. And now, what happened in most of these cases is that the shooter was bullied. And now we get to the question, to answer your question, is what is the systemic root problem of school shootings and school violence? Is bullying. And what we're not doing, like my esteemed teachers were saying here, that it starts in elementary where they get to do whatever they want with no consequences. Then it starts in middle school where now they're ostracized because they're going to in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, they're missing school, and then they're getting ridiculed for maybe some learning loss or some physical disability that they have, or something that's as simple as 2 different eye colors. Then they carry that into the high school where maybe they're not carrying it. So it is years and years of continuous bullying that makes the shooter become mentally ill, have anxiety, has resentment, hate authority. And then this was a prime example with the Covenant school shooting. There was so much bullying and the schools are not addressing the root problem. Gun violence is the systemic result, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I have studied at least 74, 73 cases of school violence across the United States. And my conclusion was that most of these incidents stem from school bullying. That is the root problem of gun violence, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marcy Oliver. I currently teach SPED at Burt Elementary. I've been a teacher for the last 8 years. Before that, for 14 years, I worked for the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office as a school resource officer.
Marcy.
So, you can understand my concern with all of this. So, my question is kind of, as a teacher, I left being an SRO because I wanted to be more effective with the children. I wanted to build closer relationships, and it's hard to do that as a school resource officer because you're a cop. Bottom line, no matter if they love you, if they high five you, you're still a cop. It's hard to break that barrier. So that's why I became a teacher. So now, when this law's passed in July, people are going to look at me because I'm a retired police officer who still gets 8 years of training every summer to carry my weapon. I'm a full supporter of the Second Amendment, and I love my right to carry a firearm. So people are going to be looking at me like, okay, you're the one in our school that's going to be carrying, right? No, I don't want to. I left being an SRO for a reason. I wanted to be a teacher. So my question is, at what point am I a teacher or am I an SRO now that I'm carrying a weapon? Are you going to pay me to be both? Because that's not what I want to be. And so I don't understand why we can't look at the sheriff's office, all this federal funding for school safety. Why are we not hiring and retaining good SROs so that we have more than one in schools, or that we have at least one in every school? That's my question. Why are we looking at the sheriff's office to do more of their job than teachers to do their job?
I worked for the sheriff's department, and I've been gone from the sheriff's department for about 10 years now. And I can't speak for the sheriff. I think that we do have an issue with recruiting. And I think that we have to do more of that. We have to make it where they want to come here. And let me say, we have a recruiting problem for law enforcement across the country.
Yes.
This is not something that's just here in Montgomery County. It's something across the country. But we have to be more innovative as to how we draw people. You see law enforcement officers doing recruitment, and they're going from New York all the way out just to go to California to events just to recruit people. And they're understanding that the more you pay, unfortunately, the more you're going to draw. It's a dangerous job. You never will be able to pay a law enforcement officer the money that they're worth. You never will be able to pay a teacher the money that they're worth. But when it gets to that question, you won't be able to do that. So you're out here competing against agencies across the country. And so you have to work on innovativeness, things you do. You're gonna have to take care of the people that you get to make them want to stay.
Yes.
You have to do that. You have to be fair across the board. I think that the agency has to look like the community to which it serves.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that, when it's not, I don't want to make this long, but the fact is, when slavery started in the 1800s, it was all white males. When you look at our law enforcement across the country, it's mostly all white males. We have to change that. We have to change the way we do things every day, not make us less safe. Okay, because there are a lot of women who are able to do this job, that have great ideas and great decision making. Okay, and we have to change this mentality that we can only do it one way, and that's no longer true.
Yes, my name is Bernard Carter, and as a candidate for school board, my question is to the teachers. Do you feel like that you actually work in a safe learning environment, and if not, what is your biggest threat?
So for me personally, like I stated before, as far as my school goes, the SRO in our building has done an excellent job. of making sure that we are safe. We've gone through all the scenarios. She's there at every point giving her feedback, and our principal and admin do a great job of following through with her suggestions as far as that goes. My number one concern for safety, like I stated, is the children. And it's not it's the throwing of things. It's the safety for myself from a child, because even though I work in an elementary school, we have some 5th grade girls that look like grown women. We have some 5th grade boys who could bear me down and not think once about it. It is not the traditional, oh, they're little itty bitty kids. No. Some of these 5th graders, 4th graders, and even some 3rd graders are bigger than I am as far as stature. So my concern for safety is safety for other students against those students, because when I say my room has been destroyed every year with the exception of this year, where I've had to evacuate my classroom. And it's sad that I also have to teach my kids lockdown drills. The very first year that I did that with my students, I went home and bawled like a baby, because I should never have to teach children to lock down. Then I had to start teaching my children in my classroom to know when it was safe to leave. That when a student starts acting this particular way, you need to gather whatever you're working on and go to another teacher's room. That also destroyed me, because my students should never have to feel unsafe in the classroom because one student is destroying the room. And I mean, this is while last year I had a student literally break apart my rocking chair with my admin and his parent in there. Break apart my rocking chair. And he's like, I'm going to throw this at you. Now, I'm not one, I have to meet crazy with crazy. And I mean that in because these kids don't have anybody to challenge them. Because this boy's dad, Jasper Eugene, if you don't stop, my response is, let's go. And when I say, when I say, let's go, then they look at me a different way, because they know that I'm not going to back down. And it's not to be like, like I'm going to fight you, but they have to know I am where you draw the line. Mm-hmm. So when I speak about safety in my school, it is against other children, against children and myself. It is not, like I said, because I work at Kenwood. We've had the sheriff's department come in and say we are a big threat for having gun violence at our school, because we are close to an interstate. It's the fastest way to get out. We're close to another state. They can hit 101st and they're gone. They come from Kentucky, go back to Kentucky, and they're gone. But I still stay at my school because my school has done a wonderful job of making it safe and making me feel safe in my school. I trust my SRO to do her job and to make sure that we are safe.
Again, to repeat the question, this candidate for school board wants to know if you feel safe.
So most of the time, as a bigger person, I just have always, even though a lot of the kids are bigger than me, I have just enough crazy that I think I'm invincible. My fear honestly doesn't come mostly from me. It comes from my fellow teachers who are significantly smaller than I am, whether that's height or weight or etc. And I laughed when you said you got to meet crazy with crazy, because I have lived by the belief that in a dangerous situation, you just got to be the craziest person in the room. Because they're never sure what that crazy person is going to do. And I've had to do that where I've had students who have threatened me. When I substitute taught, I had kids who told me they were going to come find me in the parking lot. And when I told the administrators, they're like, yeah, he's like that. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm like, I have to have this kid again in an hour. And they're like, don't make him mad. And I was like, cool, awesome. And the kid was like, can't wait to see you in the parking lot. I was like, hope you know where I'm parked. He did not meet me in the parking lot, by the way. But that was the thing, is that And he kind of paused when I said that because he was like, wait a minute. Because I have some very sweet teachers who are like, oh, sweetheart, oh, honey. And I'm like, no. Because you have to be. And I agree that it's the children. Again, I broke up a fight last year, and I thought about that it's easier to take a hit to the back of my head than the face. I have thought about the fact I have gotten shoved. I have had friends who children are making literal shanks in their classroom.
Yep.
And nothing happened. I'm pretty sure that one of the only reasons my co-teacher, my friend who was right next door, the only reason she was not sad that year is because we had COVID lockdown. She told those principals repeatedly, the administration, the SRO, that this kid is making shanks in the classrooms and hurting himself on them, thankfully, before he could hurt her. And they're like, well, he has emotional problems. And I'm not saying we don't have to deal with that. I'm a big proponent in mental health. I know that there are kids who have significant behavior and mental issues that I am not prepared to handle. The problem is nobody else is. And they're willing to sacrifice us in the name of not upsetting parents. And that is part of what makes us unsafe.
Being a 40-year vet, almost a 40-year vet, in this incredible profession, being a teacher, I realize, and I've seen a lot, heard a lot, and today I've heard a lot, but I have never, I'll be honest, I have never not felt safe. And I'm not saying because everything is in place in my school district and, going to different school districts, but I do hear these stories from teachers in my district. So me personally, but I applaud you for being here to hear the voice of the teachers. I applaud the NAACP for allowing educators, those seasoned and those new into this, that are part of the panel. I do applaud our speakers who are for it and those who are adamantly opposed against it. However, being in the same place, but being as we are here learning and listening. So safety, number one, for our children. Number two, our educators. And number three, school board to get on your job.
Right.
Yes. Thank you again, everybody. In recognition of your invaluable contribution as a panelist in the discussion on arming teachers, a necessary measure or a step too far.
Watch this and other things like this about our city of Clarksville on ClarksvilleTV.live.